historical development of computers. Now, this lesson is going to be talking about the of computers element up to what we have. Set of computers that today are known as the fifth generation of computers. Now, I'll tell you that computers didn't just start as a device, didn't just start today. Computers we have now were developed, went through series of developmental stages over the century to arrive at what we have now. Now, this lesson is going to be focusing on the history of computers. That's why the topic is the historical development of computers, how computers came to be. Computers we have today didn't just, we are not like this as 2-3 centuries ago. So now we're going to talk about how computers came to be, what led to what in the history of computers. Now, the history of computers dates back to in fact, it dates back to the beginning of man, in the days of the early men, in the days of the cavemen, when they were using various things they could see around them to do their calculation. Computer as a word actually means a calculator, as the word compute means to calculate. So that goes to tell you that computer as a device was actually developed out of several devices, several calculating devices, to arrive at what we have today. Now we're going to be looking at various historical development of computers. Computer era began around 1940s. Okay, as at then, there was need to do some series of calculations and what have you. And then what they could use for their calculation were things they could see around them. The early men could only use things they could see around them. Before I go into that, I want to talk about the four major categories or the four major developmental stages of computers. We have the early counting devices, we have the mechanical counting devices, we have electromechanical counting devices, and electronic counting devices in modern computers. And we're going to talk about the early counting devices. The early counting devices were those items. I won't really call them devices, but they were actually items. The early man, when I say the word, it's me like, the early man used items they could see around him to do their various calculations and counting. Items like fingers and toes, pebbles, stones, sticks, calories and grains, leaves, natural things. However, there was a little problem, and there was a big problem with this early counting devices. It could not count large numbers. The early counting devices could not count large numbers, so there was need to do calculations that involved large numbers. And that was what led to the mechanical counting devices. Okay, so mechanical counting devices were the next set of developmental stages of computers. So in my next lesson, I'm going to be talking about the various mechanical counting devices that were developed in the 19th century and how they worked. So please stay with me. Thank you.